Hey, it's Dr. Schmidt. So I have a few things I want to go over. And the first one is related to the topic of this video, and it's about additional causes of heart disease. So I listened to this fantastic interview of Ivor Cummins, and his guest was a guy named Malcolm Kendrick. And Malcolm Kendrick is, I guess it's his specialty, if you will, to study the causes of heart disease. And one thing that Malcolm said, he said a couple things, and the actual interview itself was like an hour and a half long. And I'll put the link below when this is done. But there's two things I really want to go over. Number one, he said that sickle cell anemia can cause heart disease. And then number two, he said when you take the vein out of your leg, like for, let's say, a triple bypass surgery, they remove the artery that's blocked and they put in a vein instead. Those veins can be blocked too later on, and but they don't get blocked anywhere else in the body. The veins only get blocked here. So here's why sickle cell can cause heart disease and a vein can get blocked here. Number one, the sickle cell anemia reduces oxygen in the blood. So that's part of the whole situation that I've been talking about regarding like this scenario of lactic acidosis being hypoxia. So hypoxia is part of the problem causing cell starvation and cell death. And what the doctor said in 1950, and this is totally debatable, is that the toxic / hypoxic blood is harmful to the interior of the arteries, and then the body will lay down fat to protect it. So that's just one thing I wanted to add regarding this video. It's very interesting. The other thing was when you have a triple bypass and then the vein itself gets clogged up, what's the problem there? And here's my answer to this. Here's my response. I think the answer is different hemodynamics. The fluid flow is maybe turbid, or there's eddies in there. It's like you have a stream that's the bottom of the stream and the sides of the stream are nice and smooth, and the water is moving very gently along in a straight line. But if you throw 5 big rocks in there, now the water is running around the rocks, and sand will get deposited in the front of the rock. And then, but where the water is coming in from behind the rock, it'll be like cleaned out. But so you get like weird deposits of sand because of the eddies and the turbulences due to the change of the flow of the fluid. Same thing in the arteries. This is just my working theory. I could be completely wrong on this, but I think that, and this is what was described in the original lactic acidosis explanations, is that you could have change in the, you can have like a weakness in the heart, and the heart is now sitting weirdly in the chest, and that changes the fluid flow of the blood, and the hemodynamics are changed. And then you get deposits of plaquing. So I just wanted to add that. I'll put the link below. It's a great interview. And so let me switch over to the next subject, and it's related to causes. And I'm going to give you like an analogy related to my favorite graphic that I created. So when you're trying to fix chronic illness, you have to address causes, mechanisms, and symptoms come from organs that are not functioning well. So let me give you this analogy. Let's say you have a car and you're driving it fast down the road and there's a lot of potholes. This is a lot of thought went into this analogy. Just bear with me. So the car, you get a flat tire. The first flat tire is due to a particular stressor on the car. This is toxins. So you put a spare tire on it. And then that's it. Then the second flat tire is a pathogen. You get a bug or a virus, and you put a spare tire on. The third one is excess sugar metabolism. You're eating too much sugar, body's burning too much sugar, never getting into ketosis. That's 3 spare tires you have on your car. And you're still driving down the road really fast. Your car is your body. Your choice to drive down this road really fast is your lifestyle. And you have 3 spare tires. Your body, your car is ill. It's malfunctioning. The car is trying to do the best it can, the best it can based on your lifestyle choices. That's the ultra mechanics now of the car, because you got 3 spares on it, and the steering wheel always wants to turn left. So you're like always jerking it to the right, and your braking is weird, and your acceleration is weird, and the traction is weird in the snow or the rain. And you say, well, something's wrong with the steering wheel, or something's wrong with the gas pedal. or the brake. So you go to a doctor, you go to a mechanic with your car, and you say, I have the symptoms of the steering is weird, the braking is not as good as it should be, the acceleration, the traction, it's not as good as it should be. So the doctor looks at the steering wheel and the brakes, and then the gas line or whatever it takes, that what they think is the problem with the engine. But they're missing the actual, those are all symptoms, right? And that could be very valid, because maybe the 3 spare tires on your car are changing the way that the handling is happening, or they are creating negative effects on the braking system. So maybe you do need to get new brakes. Maybe you do need to work on the steering wheel, steering column, something with the linkages on the inside of the steering mechanism. So you can address the symptoms here, but don't forget to get rid of the 3 spare tires, put on regular tires, and then stop driving down the road too fast and pick roads that don't have many potholes. So there's my simple analogy on using these 3 circles, causes, mechanisms, and feeding symptoms to get rid of organs, so that you can address your health and have better success and faster success, and efficiently with nutrition. All right, the last thing I want to go over, and then I'll start asking questions. Do you want to see the first probiotic ever put on the market? Yeah, here it is. It's lactic acid yeast from Standard Process. And the name probiotic was not even in existence. It didn't exist at that time. And let me get you the year. I got this right here. 1939 is when lactic acid yeast came out. It's a wafer. And so it's good for constipation, and it makes the correct pH in the intestines. And it's a wafer, so you chew it. You don't swallow the whole thing. You got to chew it up. It tastes a little bit better than cardboard. I actually like the taste. It's a little bit sweeter than cardboard. So that's kind of the texture. It's dry, and it's a good product. So those are the things I wanted to go over. So I want you to ask me some questions here. I'm gonna hi. All right. Hi. Have you heard the idea that the heart is not a pump? Yeah, Thomas Cowan was on High Intensity Health saying really interesting stuff like blood is alive and almost flows by itself. Yeah, I have a lot to say about that. And I mentioned in my last live stream last week that I was thinking about putting a guest on my channel because he knows a lot about lactic acidosis, and I learned from him. It's Thomas Cowan. And he's been affiliated with the Weston A. Price Foundation. He does what's called anthroposophical medicine, based on the work of, and I forgot his name, but a German, brilliant German guy. I forgot the name. Anthroposophical medicine, anyways. But I saw him speak live in Ann Arbor at the Weston A. Price Foundation, like annual symposium, and they had it in Ann Arbor back in like 2002, maybe somewhere in there, 2003. And he talked about this thing, lactic acidosis. I had no idea what he was talking about. And he was saying words I didn't understand. And I thought, well, this is new. This is interesting. This is something that I should probably figure out. And I did in 2016, and then more in 2017. Now his solution because he's saying that lactic acidosis is the cause of heart disease, or at least maybe the mechanism. I'm not sure exactly what he says about that. But when I read his articles, he doesn't say that it's also related to diabetes. He doesn't say it's also related to cancer. Just in my limited exposure to his writings, he says it's related to heart disease. And then his solution is it's a herb. And I used to have the name of it, and I looked into it, and the herb is actually poisonous. It's a prescription drug, this herb. And so my favorite herbalist from Australia, Kerry Bone, I sent him an email. I said, hey, what do you think of this herb? And I gave him a little background on it. And he said, no, don't use it. There's way better ways to fix this situation instead of using a poisonous prescription herb. So when I read Thomas Cowan's articles published in the Weston A. Price Journal, I just pulled it out the other day, by the way. He went through research that was done in the 70s. And there was some medical doctor, I think it was in South America, and going through the hows and the whys, and he involves a lot of the nervous system. But I don't talk about the nervous system here when it comes to lactic acidosis, because all the organs get negatively affected. The nervous system just being one of them, one of the systems. And when it comes to the solution, well, I talk about plenty of that. There's four ways to break that cycle of lactic acidosis. So Thomas Cowan, he was the guy that I wanted to ask to be on the channel. I wasn't able to get to that since I last talked about it. I was gone for the weekend. Now I'm back at work. And, but yeah, I'm going to talk to him about that and see where we can agree and see where we can learn. So yeah, the heart is not a pump. And I mentioned this even in my last video. I didn't say the heart is not a pump, but what I said was, in order to get the fluid from your feet up your legs, it's all the cells working in unison with their own pumping action. They take in nutrients and they expel waste. Well, if all the cells are expelling waste really well, the cell membranes are strong, they have energy from mitochondria to do the work, they're all pumping the fluid and it can only go up. And then the veins are these tubes that have valves in them. So the blood goes up like this, and if there's any moment of rest, the valves close and it keeps that blood where it's at. That way it's not pooling down. And that's why when people get varicose veins or maybe hemorrhoids, it's because the vein tissue itself is weak, and the valves, they're supposed to close and prevent the blood from falling down. But since the veins are big, like open like this, the valves will go like this and they can't block the blood from going down anymore. So that's why you want to make sure you have healthy veins, and collagen is very important for that. And vitamin C is very important for that. So thank you for bringing up Thomas Cowan. He's been talking about the heart is not a pump for at least 15 years. He's in a book called, I think he wrote the book called The Fourfold Path to Healing. And he's got a whole chapter on the heart is not a pump. So the blood actually, here's the heart, and the speed of the flow of blood going into the heart is equal to the speed of the blood going out of the heart. So if the heart was a pump, the blood flow in would be slower and the blood flow out would be faster. And it's not that way. It's the same speed. So the heart will act as a dam. It's more of a dam. It's super interesting stuff. And actually, I remember I gave a lecture about this probably back in 05, 06. I was at Whole Foods. They had a classroom. They would invite outside speakers. We had a regularly scheduled lecture with them in their classroom at the Whole Foods down more on the east side of Ann Arbor. And I had an audience of people, and I mentioned the heart is not a pump, it's a dam. And I explained this whole thing. People got up and left. I say things that it's just not real for people, and they don't get it, and they're offended. Their emotions are out of control, and they get up and they leave. So yeah, new ideas, but it makes sense to me. Okay. Recent indigestion, carnivore, ketogenic since March, macros 62, fat 32, protein and carbs fiberless, and average 6%. Recent indigestion. Well, I don't know if you're doing any salt, and it's recent, but you've been keto carnivore since March, so that's plenty of time. So something new has developed, and I'm not sure what happened just before that indigestion started, which is a fantastic question. I ask that to all my patients. So you're sick now. It started, at this period of time. What happened just before that? Then you can try to figure out like what's going on. Maybe you got some bug, or maybe something like that. Okay. All right. There's a lot of questions, and this thing keeps bouncing around. How good is vitamin C at preventing atherosclerosis? Yeah, vitamin C is okay. So remember, atherosclerosis, the plaquing in the arteries. What's it caused by? There's multiple causes, and you can have a high-fat diet and never get atherosclerosis because your arteries are very well put together. They're seamless. And once you eat a bunch of sugar, that breaks up tissue from head to toe, and now you get cracks in the arteries, and that's where plaquing can occur. So vitamin C repairs the seams. It acts like glue to hold the arteries together, and you want your arteries strong and flexible at the same time. Okay, so that's vitamin C preventing atherosclerosis by keeping the arteries close together. Now, the way you get rid of vitamin C is by eating a lot of sugar. So don't eat a lot of sugar. And the way you maintain your vitamin C is don't eat a lot of sugar. And if you eat some fruit, you get some vitamin C there, but there's other foods that have vitamin C. So a healthy diet will give you some vitamin C, and at the same time, low carb diet prevents you from losing it. So sugar is your enemy when it comes to vitamin C. Now, let's not forget, okay, and I've discussed this before, and people fight me on this, but I'm going to say it again. On the labels, vitamin C is ascorbic acid. So when Albert Szent-Györgyi found ascorbic acid, whatever, I forgot what year it was, back in the 20s or whatever, he discovered that you need more. And he particularly mentioned rutin, he mentioned pycnogenol, P factors, he called them. And there's these other things that help maintain the health of your heart and arteries. And rutin, for example, prevents capillary and arterial permeability. So like leaky arteries, you've heard of leaky gut, you can have leaky arteries too. So the ascorbic acid doesn't fix that permeability, but rutin does. So have the whole vitamin C complex. And what happened after Györgyi found ascorbic acid, supplement companies started making ascorbic acid supplements, and they called it vitamin C. And Györgyi said, well, wait a minute. It's not just that, it's more. It's rutin too. It's other things. It's P factors, and there's J factors, and the supplement companies were like, we don't care. We're already making these products. So they changed the definition of what vitamin C does, and they took out the arterial permeability or capillary fragility. They removed that from what vitamin C can do. They took it out of that definition, which is hugely unethical, because now people are taking ascorbic acid thinking that they're protected regarding heart arterial health, and they're missing rutin and other things. Okay. High blood pressure is a symptom of physiological problems, Paul Glaus. What is the cause of your high blood pressure? There could be multiple causes. What do you think of resveratrol and the supposedly better version called something beginning with the letter P? I don't know what the other version of resveratrol is. And resveratrol is really a very good nutrient for the things that it does. It had a huge marketing push. I don't know if it was 10 years ago. And I was like rolling my eyes like, oh man, here comes another fad nutrient. But no, it's held its ground, and there's research on it. And it's a good thing. Resveratrol is a good thing. What are your preferred ways of reducing chelating unbound iron? If you're referring to hemochromatosis, which is more of a genetic thing, you gotta have your blood donated. You gotta draw your blood. Otherwise, too much iron is just like too much mercury, too much cadmium, too much tin, too much lead. You gotta detox it out. And I have a couple of different programs that I like to use. My doctor says my cholesterol is high, total is 217, HDL-C is 65, triglycerides 72, and LDL-C is 138. What do you say? Been doing low carb keto for a year now. I'm going to get out my calculator, and together we're going to look at your numbers. So let me get my calculator. I do this all the time. Here's my calculator. So you take your total cholesterol, 217 minus your HDL is 65, so minus 65. Then your LDL is 138. And now you're left with what's called the remnant cholesterol, and you want it to be less than 19, and yours is 14. I'm talking to you, barbecue man. So your VLDL is 14. See that? That's awesome. It's less than 19. You're good. You can consider yourself a lean mass hyperresponder, although your total cholesterol would usually be higher. But the thing is, your triglycerides are 72, which is great. Now, if you have heart disease, your triglycerides are like, could be 300, 500. I've seen them as high as 2,000. Mine are, I think they're 47. I just had a patient last week. Hers was in the 30s. So the lower the triglycerides, the better off you are. So that's awesome. Having said that, I need to say something else about Malcolm Kendrick. and the video that he did with Ivor Cummins, he said that the plaquing in the arteries is not LDL. It's LDL plus a protein plus another LDL. What is that? Lipoprotein A. And what causes lipoprotein A to get stuck and make a plaque in your arteries? Blood clots. It's the hemodynamics. It's the altered blood flow, just like homocysteine or C-reactive protein. So I've talked about this. My lipoprotein A used to be 131. Now it's 82. It's dropped 50 points in 2.5 years with ketosis. So barbecue, man, your numbers there are good, but what's more important? Number one is the coronary artery calcium score. Number two is these 4 blood clotting factors, and I talked about this a lot, but lipoprotein A, homocysteine, C-reactive protein, and fibrinogen. Fibrinogen with an F as in Frank, fibrinogen. So get those run. Have your doctor run those. Now, when doctors run these tests and they come back like positive, like it's bad, by law, they have to treat it. But there's no drug treatment for coronary artery calcium score and the 4 blood clotting factors. So a lot of times doctors won't run these tests, which is very sad, but that's just the way it is. That's the nature of the beast of the medical system. It's unfair to both the patient and the doctor. Okay, there's my little soapbox on that. How does diabetes cause heart disease? Right, it's the diet causing diabetes, and you get this mechanism leading into heart disease and cancer. It's just like a later manifestation of the disease of eating high sugar. So by the time the average American is 19 years old, their insulin is consistently too high. That's one definition of diabetes. Now, their blood sugar may not be too high until they're 55 years old. Then they get diagnosed in medicine with diabetes, but they should have been diagnosed when they were 19. So having too much sugar for too long sets up the whole lactic acid cycle, which leads into cell death and a heart attack. It leads into some cells, instead of dying, they convert over away from burning sugar into burning lactate. That's lactic acidosis. And that is cancer after a period of time. If you're using lactate as your fuel for too long, your body won't get out of that. Even if you add oxygen back in, you start bringing in more oxygen, that should be the cure, but it's not all the time. So if the body still is burning lactate, even after you bring in oxygen and it's been 5 months, now you got a cancer situation. So there's the answer to that. That's a very good question. It's not about diabetes causing heart disease. It's not about obesity causing joint pain. It's not about obesity causing heart disease, right? All of these are symptoms. And what are the 3 main causes of those symptoms? Toxicity, pathogens, and then excess sugar metabolism. Now, in the toxicity aspect here, it also includes bad fats, canola oil, grapeseed oil, all the vegetable oils or seed oils is what they're called now, seed oils. So consider that. You got to keep that in mind, this bigger picture and how everything fits into place. Yeah, question here is Lucas saying, you mentioned to eat organs to fix the organ having issues. Can that same concept work for muscle with meat, prime rib, chest, chuck, shoulders? No, I don't think so. I don't think that matters. But that's a good question, though. I like it. If it was true, that'd be really cool. All right. Are there any nutrition considerations for tinnitus? Yeah, ketosis is the best thing I've seen for tinnitus. What do you think about Linus Pauling, vitamin C, and lysine? I took lysine and vitamin C using Linus Pauling and Dr. Rath, his associate, Matthias Rath, who is still running the Linus Pauling Institute. So I got into ketosis 2.5 years ago, started taking the C and the lysine, and there's like 2 other things I'm missing. I did their protocol, and then I ran out of the supplements. I never went to go buy them again. But staying in ketosis, my lipoprotein A is continuing to go down, down, down. So ketosis fixes up most of this stuff. So I'm not so much into the Linus Pauling protocols. And the other thing is, again, he's saying ascorbic acid, Linus Pauling, ascorbic acid is a cure for everything, is basically what he said. and he died of prostate cancer. He said vitamin C was a cure for prostate cancer. And he said in an interview, he goes, they should have been taking 100,000 grams a day of vitamin C. Well, you know, just because it's not working at 5 grams doesn't mean it's going to start working at 100,000 grams. So he's got a lot of good information, but the whole general premise of ascorbic acid being the cure-all, not into that at all. I'm more like the whole food philosophy of standard process with Ceruta, Cataplex C, those products right there. All right. This car. All right. This thing keeps bouncing around. Let me jump to this question. Why does the heart beat if it's not a pump? Because it's acting as a dam. So you start like running, or let's say you're just walking up the steps, and you can't have too much blood going in and then not enough blood coming out. And so you start to do more activity, and you're starting to pump fluids up your legs. So the blood is going to regulate that. So it's not, the heart's not being overwhelmed. That's the answer to that question. Hugh Lowe. Pugsley Moog. Gerald Pollack's work on fourth phase of water fits with the heart not being a pump. This is brilliant work by Dr. Gerald Pollack. And what it is, it's like if you add sunshine to water, that water changes and it becomes more viscous and it becomes more electric. So let's say you have an artery, or let's say a lymphatic vessel. It doesn't have to be anything that's pumping. Like an artery can go like this with the heart, right? But a vein doesn't, or a lymphatic tissue doesn't. So let's say you have a lymphatic vessel like this, and you have in the center like a fluid going through, and it has a particular charge. Let's say I don't remember if it's positive or negative. And then around the outside, you have the opposite charge. So you have positive here and negative here on the outside. So it's like two magnets that don't want to be next to each other. So that's what helps push the fluid through your body, is just positive, negative. It's brilliant. I mean, whoever made these bodies, it's really cool. And that helps also bring the fluid up from the feet up into the rest of the body. So I'm glad that we are talking about this. It's a super interesting subject. And Gerald Pollack, I know, is looking for donations if you want to look him up. And he's onto something. And they found it by mistake. One of his research assistants found that by mistake. All right. What do you think of high blood pressure running in the family? It depends on what the family's eating. So if you're eating too much carbs, then you're going to have high blood pressure. Is it genetic? Everybody's got a genetic predisposition to something. So you can have a genetic predisposition to high blood pressure because your parents had it, their grandparents had it. So do the things that the opposite of what they're doing with your diet and see if it comes down. Maybe you have mold in your body. Maybe you have other causes. Remember these causes. Don't forget that. Genetics is rarely an issue here. It's more like your lifestyle and things that you're doing. All right. Should your diet be based on your blood type? No, I never bought into that. I bought the books when they came out. I think I threw them away from the moldy office. I threw a lot of books away, but yeah, I don't get into the blood type diet. A lot of times people get better on the blood type diet because they're not eating the standard American diet anymore. All right. The calcium score is a MRI, or I'm sorry, it's a CT scan, and it's really cheap where you live, and sometimes you have to pay cash for it. The best score for a calcium score is 0. Anything higher, you might want to address it. I have plenty of videos on that. So use YouTube like a search engine, search Darren Schmidt, CAC, and see what that says. Is apple cider vinegar dangerous for heart issues? Not that I know of. I'm on Ceruta, Cat C, and Prep Phase, EEI, DEI all low. Okay. Have been on keto, moderate fat, high protein for a week. Experiencing palpitations. So the palpitations since a week, you probably need some magnesium or potassium or salt. So check out the minerals to calm this down. And maybe some Cataplex G. A coronary CT scan. Okay, thanks. Will vitamin C help arteries open or relax? The vitamin C regarding arteries, like I said, it heals the tissue. The other thing vitamin C does is it increases the oxygenation of the blood. So with lactic acidosis, here's L for lactate. It could be W for waste. Let's do L for lactate. Too high. Here's oxygen. Too low. The vitamin B complex, Cataplex B, my favorite supplement, brings down the waste products. The C raises the oxygen. So you want these two together to be equal. That makes the arteries perfect. But when you have this, that makes the arteries dilate. And when you have this, that makes the arteries constrict. So you want to, so like in chronic illness, a lot of times it's too much waste. That's why I use the word toxic and hypoxic. So vitamin C can increase the oxygenation of the blood. So it's not about trying to like make the arteries constrict or dilate or whatever. It's more about cleaning the blood and giving the blood more oxygen. Okay. Can you show more of your books on the bookshelf behind you? Yeah, that's actually a really good question. This is a Mayo Clinic Health Knowledge. I think it's 1925. 1923. No, this isn't the Mayo Clinic. This is Health Knowledge, 34 departments from Domestic Health Society Incorporated. I haven't gotten into this. This is a gift. It's super interesting. The one next to it, the one next to it, this is from the Mayo Clinic. And again, this is from the 20s. This is the original information related to the ketogenic diet for epileptic kids. So 1925. This book was published in May of 1926. This book right here is the A Vitaminoses book. I've been through, see all the little tabs in there? I think this is 1948 or 1945 and 1944. And so there's really good information. That's when they did all the feeding studies before World War II. Like what does a vitamin E deficiency cause? You know, like E deficiency causes stillborns. Like the moms can't give birth to live babies. Like that's a huge problem for some people. Maybe just need vitamin E, and it was discovered in the 1930s, and it's in this book from 1944. I did not expect me to do this, but this is interesting. This is a book on the standard process. They have a 21-day detox program, and I've never done it. And I've had a few people do it in the last, it came out, I don't know, back in like 03, 04. I don't really have people do it because I've never done it. And initially it was vegan, no meat whatsoever. But then later they added, you can have some chicken, and then you take a bunch of pills that are plant-based and powders that are plant-based, and people lose weight. And I've had some people, I've heard of really good success stories. And two things come about. Number one, you get cleaned out and you lose weight. And number two, more importantly, you learn how bad you were feeling and you learn what foods were doing to you. So then after 21 days, you get cleaned out. And now it's like, do you really want to eat those chips? And people learn that lesson from from the 21-day purification program. I'm not going to show you this book. These two books have to do with the electrical field around the body. So I do the muscle testing procedure, and it involves the field. And I studied a lot of physics to figure that out. So this is Dr. Jerry Tennant, and he's got some great information. He said healing is all electrons, it's voltage. The movement of electrons is electricity. So he was deathly ill. He was only lucid like 1 hour a day. He was laying in bed all day. And during that 1 hour, he started using his brain to figure out how to fix himself. And he used voltage to do it. And this one is Robert Becker. I think this was from the late 80s when it came out, but it's sort of like 85. This is like life-changing right here. And I mean, this changed everything when it came to looking at the body in a different way. You know, it's not just a mass of chemicals moving around. There's electricity around it. And here he talks about growing back limbs, you know, like various reptiles or amphibians can grow back limbs. And he mentions in this book, you can cut your finger off and like a kid, like let's say the tip of the finger is cut off and then they stitch it closed. And he's saying if you don't stitch it closed, it'll grow back. Like as if the kid was amphibian. That's what it says in that book, and there's research to back that up. I got a couple herbal books, Heinemann's Encyclopedia of Healing Herbs and Spices. And this was botanical influences on illness. And now this is a bit older too. It's backed by research. I mean, this is the kind of research that's in PubMed. So they have really good studies to say what they're saying. And let's see Michael Murray was part of the creation of this book, and he's kind of a famous naturopathic doctor. And 1994 is when this came out, Botanical Influences. If you're interested in health, this is like a textbook that everybody should have. Weston A. Price, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. It documents his research and traveling around the world in the 1930s, looking at 134 different tribes and comparing their health with the people that ate foods of modern commerce, meaning white bread, white pasta. And, I had a patient show me a reference. He brought a book in, and I actually want to read it to you, read this one section here. And I'd have to find it. So just before I left for the weekend. And what this book was about, it was about in World War II, when enemy soldier was captured, let's say German or Italian or whatever, they brought him over to the United States and they had camps. In Michigan, there were 28 POW camps. And so there was a guy that was in this camp. He was Italian. And he's talking about, he's in this camp with a whole bunch of Germans, and they call them Krauts, right? I'm German, so I'm not offended when I hear that term. And in the book, this Italian guy, he's saying, I'm going to read it right. I got it right here. So he's talking about the caretakers, in quotes, Americans. And the Italian guy's name was Adino. And so he complains that we're all Krauts to them. We're all Krauts to the Americans. The Americans can't distinguish between the Krauts and the Italians. And they don't care. His theory about why the natives, the Americans, were so dense on the subject, quote, it's because of the bread. I tell you, they eat the white bread like that's cake, and they don't know one damn thing, unquote. So, yeah, bread is so, it can make you stupid, right? And the other thing I want to say about this is that at that time in the 1940s, bread was made with iodine. It was part of the process of making it. And iodine is really good for the thyroid, and it makes people smarter. It increases their IQ. And I'm a huge fan of iodine. I've seen people get smarter. They understand what I'm saying better. They talk faster. Their communication's better. Their eyes look better. And now we don't even use iodine anymore to make our bread. We use bromine, which is a toxin to the thyroid. So it makes it worse. So there's that. What else I want to show you? Here's another older one. This is the vitamins from Sherman and Smith. And again, it's another reference on those pre-World War II studies. This is from 1931. That was early. That's an early one. That's a good one. All right, these are fun. Okay. Here's another sort of principles and practices of phytotherapy from Kerry Bone. He's my top herbal guy. He's in Australia. His company is MediHerb, and he wrote this with some help. It's very extensive and it's all research. And I don't know, like it's a reference book, but it's a definite like textbook. It's heavy, and you can hold a lot of things down with it. But the thing about using herbs in a practice is that when Kerry Bone makes an herbal pill or liquid, he just extracts the vital nutrients from the plant. And then it's like the whole herb philosophy, right? So you have the whole herb in there, but also too, it has important parts to it. And he amplifies the important parts. So you still have the whole herbal philosophy, and you get more, plus more. So, and then he releases it to the public, right? To me, I sell it to you, and then we see the benefits. We see what happens. Now compare that with medicine. So they don't have the whole herbal plant philosophy. They just have the parts, and they just have one part, and they put that into a pill in a high dose, and it's poisonous. All medications have a side effect. So now they have to test it on people before they release it. And they have phase 1, 2, 3 trials, and sometimes people die, and they get the results that they get. And sometimes they ban it, sometimes it passes through, and then the last phase is the accumulation of side effects, and then they report the side effects. So it's way more fun to do the herbal route. And anyways, there's a difference between doing herbology and the research side is you just make it. And of course, there's plenty of like historical documentation on how our bodies respond to the herbs. And there's, herbalists in all the tribes everywhere around the world in our history. And so, yeah, that's herbology. I think I'm going to stop right there. I got one more. This is a laboratory interpretation. I just got this, so I need to use this as a reference guide. So it's like you do a lab, I get the results, and I'm looking at the numbers, and I can see what the numbers say. And I go through this, and I can look at what they thought of those labs when they were first invented. So we're going back in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, and how those researchers, isn't that cool? How they thought of these labs. And it still has modern, references and, 2008, et cetera. So it's still a modern textbook with the historical mindset, with it too. So anyways, that's a great book that I'm looking forward to using more and more. And so here's Weston Price. These are the founders of natural medicine. Here's Royal Lee. And this is, I think this is Pottinger. I can't remember. And so anyways, there's that. All right. So now you just know a bunch of books. All right. Thanks for asking. There's a lot of questions here. Is the ketogenic diet recommendable for people whose central nervous system is aligned more on the sympathetic side rather than the parasympathetic side? So if somebody's like hyped up on the sympathetic nervous system, is ketosis good for them? That's a N=1 experiment. You got to find out, is that going to help them out or not? So I don't have like a good answer for just everybody on that one. Okay. All right. So look, I'm going to actually end this off. So we're at 43 minutes right now, and I appreciate the questions. And so I'm going to be back in 2 days, Wednesday at 6:10 p.m. Eastern time. And I'm considering doing weekends, maybe Friday. I talked about this last time, but in the mornings, like early in the morning, so I can catch people in England, Europe, and also in Australia. And I'm not a morning person, so you're going to see me and my eyes will look like horrible, and I'll be blowing my nose, and my hair is going to be all messed up. So that's what you get if you catch me in the morning. So if you want to be a patient, call the office or email. And we have room for new patients. I have other practitioners that can talk to you. I also have the Good Fat Bar, and the website there is goodfat.bar. So it helps you get off sugar, and it helps you be in ketosis. And let's say you have a very lean protein meal and you're craving for some fat because it was too lean, you can eat the Good Fat Bar. I also have Heritage Glandulars. That's my multivitamin. Multiglandular, right? Like that. So you go to heritageglandulars.com, or you can buy it from me if you're, whether you're a patient or not, you can still buy it from me. Remember, you have to cycle this on and off, like 1 week on, 1 week off. Otherwise, you get the exogenous hormones that are naturally occurring in these 9 glands. So, and if you're a practitioner, if you're a healthcare practitioner and you want to learn what I do and learn the muscle testing and learn our procedures and follow the physiology survey that I have patients do to figure this out just by interview or by history, I have a lecture October 26th in my office. It's all day. And you can go to powernutritionpractice.com and you can learn what I'm doing. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in 2 days.